Hi, Lisa.
Hello.
How you doing?
It's been a long one today. How about you?
It's been a long one today. I agree. They're kind of like dog years right now, to be honest. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I mean, just my Fitbit is like laughing at me. I didn't get up off my chip list. I don't know how many hours. I'm sitting on the couch now just so I can have a change of scenery.
Yeah, I think
From the desk chair to the couch.
exactly. I got a standing desk because I was like, okay, at least I can stand and be weight bearing instead of walking. But yes, I mean, I used to average about 7,000 steps a day just doing work, like through my day. I
Hmm.
think it's like two maybe now. Like it's just
Well,
not
yeah, I mean, I have a standing desk back in my office, but I haven't seen my office since
right.
March.
Right.
My dining
Right.
room table doesn't quite work as a
Yeah,
standing
exactly.
desk.
It's crazy. It's
So
crazy.
yeah, and of course being in in an office building, it's like, oh, I need to run across, I need to go to the bathroom, I need to run downstairs, get from the parking lot to my office.
Yeah,
Oh, just fall down the stairs now and I can start working
great.
for the day. It's a lot
It
different.
is. It's insane times.
Yes.
Leah, did you bring your daughter with you on Saturday to town meeting?
I sure did.
What'd she think of it?
She likes to go sometimes. So, and she was glad it wasn't like 4 hours long or anything. So,
I'm sure she wasn't the only one.
Yeah, we all were. We all appreciate it when it's not 4 hours long.
That's great.
yeah, she likes it. She's cool. She likes to get into the stuff that I'm into. So, fun.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Good, Amber. How about you?
Good. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
As far as you know, Kim, is everyone going to make it tonight?
I believe Steve was not available tonight. I think it was the one meeting he couldn't make.
Okay.
But other than that, I have not heard that anyone else is unavailable.
And I can debrief him a little bit. Although, as always, Pat's notes are superb. So,
Tim. So who are we waiting on? We're waiting on
Andrew?
yes. Another second or two.
And Lisa, just a heads up when we get to the minutes,
Mhm.
those weren't quite ready. So we'll just look to approve those at our meeting on Monday night.
Okay, glad I didn't miss an email. I didn't see any. Tim brought snacks. I'm jealous. And Tim, you're on mute.
Casey's chips for everyone.
That's so we can't hear him eat. That's why he was on
Yeah,
mute.
yeah. Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sorry I was late.
All right. Well, since I have to read this missive to call the meeting to order, hopefully Andrew will be not far behind. So without any further ado, pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Capital Expenditures Planning Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Town of Westborough's website at www.town.westborough.ma.us. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so in the following manner: Westborough TV. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of Westborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So I will call this meeting to order. With that, our first item on the agenda is the discussion of project review and prioritization based on the documents that Kim sent right before the last meeting that we've now had some time to look over. Kim, I don't know if you have a specific presentation that you'd like to give, or would you like to guide us through the document or give us some background, or how you'd like to proceed?
Sure. No, I think just stepping back, sort of the background and taking a look at the process we've used to prioritize or rank projects in the past was something we looked at when we started digging into the whole updating the capital planning policy, as well as our documents in the process. And in part, some of the things that I noticed going through it for the first time last year, when we came out with the scores for each of the projects, we had some that were clustered together, and it seemed to be sort of an arbitrary cutoff to some extent. It was really based on where the funding ended versus a real hard and fast that projects, grouped from, X to Y are our highest priority. And then sort of helping us really discern, what does a rating of one number mean relative to a rating of another number, other than it put projects in some sort of order. What I looked at a number of other capital improvement plans and looked at the process that many other communities use. Many of them use a more in-depth rating tool that does have categories and assigns a point value, but those are also weighted. That's something that I think we could work toward in the future, but this may be an interim step this year to look at this process where instead of specific point values, which is one way many communities do it, other communities simply have categories that help establish a funding priority in terms of those things that are, absolutely critical or essential and really should have top consideration when working and putting budgets together and identifying funding sources. Then there's a category that, without reading all the detail on the paper, that these are desirable and worthy projects, they're priority, but understanding if the funding's not available, these may not make the cut. And then there's a third category that are basically projects that are deemed, they're effectively good projects, but perhaps are deferrable based on funding. Because I think, as we all know and would expect, the needs are going to far exceed the available resources. And I think we've talked about this several times, particularly in these first couple of years, as we pull together and pull more projects and have a more comprehensive capital improvement program. I think what we're really going to start showing is what are the actual costs of maintaining our infrastructure, maintaining our facilities, being able to continue and in some cases maybe expand operations with some of the bigger equipment purchases. And I think there is some sticker shock that comes with that. But again, if we step back, and a big part of why we do this, it's a planning tool. And I think going along with that, using a prioritization that's more categorical at this point versus a number scale. In my mind, it was something worth discussing with the committee. I
Ian?
don't know if anybody has any specific thoughts.
Yeah, I had a couple questions, and I apologize as a newbie on this committee this time, but I guess a couple things. So I look at this, the three categories: the essential, desirable, whatever. I guess the first question, when I was looking through like the ones from last week on the fire departments tonight, is it the job of the requesting party to put that on there? Is that the job of this committee to assign that? I guess would be my first question.
So thank you. I actually meant to clarify that. Both. We ask the departments to assign a priority to their projects, and that's the departmentally assigned priority, so that you have a sense in looking at their projects, which ones are highest priority to the department. And then separate from that, the committee will actually assign a priority to the projects separate from the departmental priority may inform it in some respects, but this would be separately assigned by this committee.
Okay, and then I guess something that is maybe not essential, and I guess is it to look at it that says, hey, it's going to be, they're putting it out there. So again, using the fire department as example, have put stuff out for, 3 or 4 years out. So it's not essential now, but it may be essential then. We would still classify it as essential, but essential for 4 years
Yes,
from now.
that's what they were asked to do, is to evaluate it in terms of the year in which you're seeking the funding. So the year of the request. What is the evaluation? So for instance, a good example tonight, the fire department, the communications equipment is several years out, but it's identified as essential. It's essential that in that year that they've identified. Sometimes there are reasons why an essential project, it's still going to be a couple years out. There may be other things that need to be put in place before that project can happen. And so it's absolutely essential, but essential doesn't mean it has to be in the coming funding year. Sorry, I don't know if that clarified it.
No, that did. And then I guess the last question I had, and sorry, Lisa, to hit all
No,
these questions,
please.
so the last category, deferrable, whatever, I guess the question I have is, will anything that ever gets categorized as deferrable ever get funded?
I would suggest yes, that it could. It may be something that needs to come back in a later year because it can get pushed back. There may be additional information that can come back with it, or maybe it comes back in concert with something else. But I'm not coming up with a specific example in my mind, but I do see it as being something that could actually get funded.
Okay.
So Kim, I got a question for you. Did you ask the departments to rate them 1, 2, or 3 this year?
No, the departments were asked to use, they had a separate scale that they were asked to use in their project sheets. They didn't use the same category. They didn't use the priority 1, 2, or 3. I think they actually had similar terms. I can find that.
Yeah, if I look at what the fire department did, they had essential, urgent, they had necessary, and then they had desired / improvement.
Yep.
Were the ones I saw in their prioritization.
Yep.
I
Okay.
think I for anyone who's done this before or been part of this before, I think which actually I'm missing my people from last year except for Leah. But I'd be, I'm in favor of anything that takes the numbers, like they're very concrete, but they're very restrictive. You have this category that says, is this legally required? No, it gets a 0. Is this, essential to public safety? No, it gets a 0. But there's also more nuance in having multiple categories. Like there were, would this improve quality of life such that the citizens would be in favor of it? Something like the tennis courts. Like by this rating system, it basically looks like the library and the recreation department are never going to get anything they ask for, because you can never say that, say, for instance, the dog park will ever be deemed essential or necessary. And to some degree, even unless the building's falling down, a wing on the library compared to a fire truck, how do you actually say, I really want, and people really want this, when that category is literally based on just the details talk about legal requirements, legal liabilities, safety issues, things that are very important and always set the scores really high for the public safety things, but then also allowed us to gradate again across, public satisfaction, quality of life, other things. Like this seems to just basically cut out, if category 3 is always going to get short shrift, it seems like there could be entire departments that basically never get anything they ask for. Does anyone else see that as a potential drawback of a 3-point system?
Well, there's just one comment. The interesting piece is that if you look at like maintenance and repair and like care of assets, and if you let it decline until it's a safety risk, that's not a functional choice. But there is care and replacement, like roofing and things like that, and flooring. And how do we rank maintenance? Because it's not necessarily to your point going to fall in there. Is it desirable to keep maintenance? But then that's always going to be on 3 until it becomes
until it becomes
safety
1
issue. Right? Well, until it becomes a safety issue. Yeah. So I just wondered about that.
Yeah, I mean, I do see maintenance of infrastructure as a 2, but that's still kind of, it suggests that if it's always a 2, always a 2, always a 2, and misses a cut, then it becomes a 1 because something broke. It still could get us in, like, taking that kind of a route. And again, thinking of other projects that have been deferred, it's, additional vehicles for departments. It's like, well, how many years do they get to ask before they're like, our car broke down and we can't do inspections? Or how many years do they ask before it's, like, literally this vehicle failed inspection and got pulled off the road and we don't do anything? Because in our mind, it's like, yeah, well, it would be nice to have a car that does this, that, or the other thing. And so I just wonder where we're ourselves, possibly.
No, Lisa, that's exactly where I was just, it's confused. But I guess it comes down as in each year, we have, it sounds like anything that's essential in a year kind of gets first priority. And then if there's money left over, you go to priority 2. And then if there's money left over after that, then those bottom ones potentially get funded. But yeah, I agree that could mean that those things just never get funded.
Literally never make the cut. Or, again, my other thought as we're transitioning to a kind of a new way of doing all of this, if we're going to be incorporating new departments and new projects into our scheme, are we still working off of the same, we haven't talked about this, the same dollar amount? So we're trying to do more with the same, more with less. Does that mean that only the ones will ever get funded because more things are being, pulled into us? Or do we, with more responsibility, do we get more money? Or do we tell departments to go, again, what we would tell people, put a warrant article on and see what people think outside of here? How are we sort of conceptualizing? Hi, Christy.
Hi. I mean, I understand the concerns that you're bringing forward. I think and Ian knows, and that that we had the same exact issues with the other rating system, where we would often have several items that were rated too low to include. So we kind of said, oh, they don't even make it in the next 5 years. Can everybody mute if they're not speaking? Or something in the background. And so I think that's something that we're trying to avoid here, because what we recognize is that when departments are bringing things forward, it's for a reason, and so we want to make sure that that they're sort of getting their fair consideration, and not just saying, not only are you not going to get this year, but you're probably not going to get it for 5 years, even though you're saying that you need it. So this is just sort of another way of looking at it and kind of prioritizing. I think your question about the budget, the $1 million, is something that is really hard for all of us to sort of wrap our heads around, that that's not what we're working with anymore, because we're trying to create a plan that includes all of the things that we used to say, that's too big for our committee, it's a warrant article. And so, you know, this committee never has sort of rated your projects or put things in categories because you knew there was $1 million. At the end, we would take your ratings and we would say, hey, it added up, the $1 million added up to these 10 items or these 15 items, whatever it was. That's not obviously how we're going to do it going forward. So I think this committee should not be concerned about the dollar amount, which is an odd thing to say, but you should not be concerned about the dollar amount, because we are considering much larger projects. And some of them, you know, will come to town meeting in different ways, but I think really you should just focus on how you're rating them, and whether it's the old system or these categories. I think we are always going to have the recreation department disadvantaged against the police department. So, you know, as an example.
Thank you.
In just the essential category, so that's really intended for, the projects that I envision going into that category are things that there are actual legal ramifications if we don't do. So that's, I would expect, in thinking of the projects that we typically bring forward, it's not going to be the bulk of the projects where, you know, I'm trying to think, there could be a new DEP mandate and there's something that, you know, has to be upgraded as a result of that, you know, infrastructure wise, or, you know, something, you know, those are really more significant. So I'd expect there would be fewer projects in that category. In terms of maintenance, and this may be, you know, there is some art to this. So maybe there's putting some additional definition under priority 2 to include maintenance. And I think it is there, but if we need to expand upon it, that might be where that belongs. And if we're talking about, you know, one thing we're working as the project requests come in, we're trying to review them before they get to you, just to make sure that they're complete and that there's adequate information to help the committee in the evaluation process, and to help make it maybe clearer where some of these would shake out. But we're also trying to work with the department heads and confirm, you know, you've listed, you know, 3 vehicle replacements, you know, 3 significant vehicle replacements year after, you know, 3 years in a row. And I think some of what we're expecting is the schedule is going to be bunched up, if you will, for a little while, because we have some unmet capital needs. And the hope would be, as we get into this process over time, we're going to start to see some things spaced out. So maybe with DPW, maybe there's a big replacement followed by, you know, the next year, there's 2 smaller pieces of equipment. You can get it into a somewhat predictable cycle of what gets replaced when, which helps with making sure that you don't get in a situation where it's certain departments always getting their funding at the expense of other departments' projects going by the wayside.
So let me just make sure that I'm clear. So the way you envision, or maybe the way other towns use this 3-point system, is more like the 1 and the 3. It's like a bell curve where 1 and 3 really may not be that full, but 2 kind of is everything from the roof on the school to the fire truck to the ambulance to the sewer to the, because these are all things that are important, but not literally like law breaking and not literally like totally optional.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So then I definitely think it will be interesting to figure out how we refine 2, because if like 90% of our list is group two, then what of group two gets picked first until the money runs out? Like, how do you run through the list until the money runs out? That's where we'll need to maybe massage it.
So we're asking the departments to identify their funding source. So keep in mind, this is now including things that will be other funding sources than just the money that this committee has traditionally had in the back of their minds as they've evaluated the projects. So I think after you evaluate them, prioritize them, there will be some sorting out by funding type. So for instance, there's water and sewer projects that come in and come out of their retained earnings. There may be other projects that will be warrant articles, that will be, or, debt at some point. So those types of things. So I think that may address that to some extent.
I guess my question is just when you get our scores, we've got 1s and 2s and 3s. Is there a way to say that, yeah, these are a bunch of 2s, but we'd understand that, we need the ambulance and the fire truck, but if we literally had to put off this maintenance, again, just is there going to be some type of internal, or is it that literally now without the more precise, without the numbers, is that literally for the discussion of this committee where we would just set it up in a subsequent meeting to set those priorities? I just want to make sure that we kind of understand our marching orders as far as maybe doing the new scoring. Because 1, 2, 3 is simple in concept, much simpler than all those numbers in the spreadsheet. But then what do we do with all those 2s? I guess is my question. We're gonna have a bucket of 2s.
Yes.
What's our job then, or our role to sort the 2s? Or do we have a role? I guess, like, what's the envisionment here of
I think at
our
that
role?
point, the way I would envision it at that point, it comes back and it gets looked at by the financial team in terms of developing the budget and figuring out what fits where, because not everything that's in there that's a 2 is coming out of the same funding source. And so I think if there is an identification of a number of projects, again, part of what we're trying to do with this is raise awareness that these are the needs that the town has. And this committee is one group that is vetted, that these are all things that are worthy of being funded, and it can go to town meeting. In part, that's the next level of approval as well.
So it sounds like, work in progress, at least I guess I would throw out is we should probably go through, and as we get through seeing all the things and we start evaluating, I think a lot of this stuff will be questioned. We'll see how it falls out. Because I think, to my mind, I understand enough of what we're doing now. I don't know that I fully understand how it's going to fall out in the end, but
yeah,
let's trust it and see how it goes. We'll learn.
Yeah, I'm really concrete, so I'm sorry to be so OCD up front. Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I had one quick question, sort of pivoting off of Kim's comments, which is in reviewing the text under the prioritization criteria, funding, the financial implications of a priority don't seem to be reflected here. I wanted to understand that was the case. In other words, these priorities are, if you will, the value to the town, and not they're independent of funding source. So, I'll just use the dog park, for example. If something comes through with a 75 or a 90% grant funded source, but is perhaps something rated not as essential to the town, but that grant funding is available in a given year, and we're bringing up 15%. To me, that project would rise in terms of something I would want to recommend because it was grant funding available. Likewise, you talk about revenues for the water department or for others. It would seem where revenue sources are available for a given department, that penalizes the other departments. But to me, I would be weighting something that was funded from revenues also a little higher in the priorities. that's just me subjectively. Maybe the simplest question is, this is without regard to financial source, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And I think, no, Tim, I think you said it far better than what I was trying to say. I think, yes, and that's, and I think maybe that's something we could also add under the priority to some additional detail about things, for instance, the dog park with the grant funding, something that has a grant funding opportunity might fit in there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I think I've obsessed about this long enough for tonight. And we're definitely sucking up Chief Purcell's time, and I apologize for us running tardy. I'm the rookie chair of this motley crew, and so my fault. So I will turn the floor over to you so that we can hear about the requests of the fire department.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. And no problem. I'm in no hurry. So just getting to listen a little bit, I just like to start off the way I start off a lot of these similar meetings. So we make it our priority at the fire department. We know our equipment is expensive, and we know we put a robust list forward. But at the same time, we use that list as our #1 target for alternative funding all the time, particularly grants. Sometimes donations, but particularly grants. I'm happy to say in the last year, we've knocked off the SCBA, the majority of that through a grant, the extractor program to replace the equipment to launder our turnout gear for the suppression side of our operation. We knocked that off with a grant this year. Then we knocked off a portion of the turnout gear, which I'm about to talk to first with a donation from the Spectrum House this year. So that is our target all the time, is to try to knock the things off this list. And we will continue with that mission as we go forward. So for fiscal year 2022, our first request is for $86,000, and that's to outfit the firefighters with a second set of personal protective equipment. Right now, the majority of the fire department has one set. There are a handful that have two. And why that is important is that should we go to any type of a call where there's contamination of our gear, whether it be from a structure fire or car fire or hazardous materials incident, without laundering that gear, we've learned through science that gear continues to off-gas, which is what is contributing significantly that and the gross contaminants to cancer in the fire service. So as a reduction, we have enhanced our abilities through that grant that I just talked about with the extractor to launder our gear. The problem is when having the majority of the department having one set, when they're on duty and we have a structure fire at 10 o'clock in the morning and we throw it in the washing machine, that gear is out of service for 24 hours, which renders the people that got contaminated, which is usually all of us, without turnout gear until the next shift. So right now we kind of share a little bit, but it's not great. We try to take care of the people that are on duty first, and we try to work with each other to get stuff laundered. But gear is not something that is shared. It's all custom sized. We have 6'5" people, and we have 5'2" people. It's all specific to how that person works. So $86,000 would help us complete our project, where we'd get the rest of our department into a second set of turnout gear. And that was that gear includes a protective hood, coat, pants, suspenders, boots, gloves, not a helmet, but those basic items. That is the expectation in the fire service right now. And frankly, I'm a little bit behind on getting that done. So that is my first request for fiscal year 22 for $86,000. The second is probably the most expensive. It is the most expensive. It's the replacement of engine 2. Engine 2 is our reserve apparatus right now. It is currently 24 years old. When we go to town meeting, it'll be 25. It'll take over a year to build, be 26 by the time we get rid of it. It is at the end of its life. It has the typical problems that a 26-year-old vehicle has. And there's also, our mechanics have difficulty getting parts for it. They really don't make a lot of them anymore. We've had to go as far as the other side of the world to get parts at one point to replace components of the motor in this truck. It is a Pierce Saber. It helps to sustain our ISO rating by giving us the complement apparatus we need to move water for specific commercial occupancies in town. And we're looking to replace it with a similar piece of apparatus. The price is high. The deputy and I, up until 20 minutes ago, have been on the phone still trying to get a better price. I am beside myself at how much these pumpers have gone up. But unfortunately, so the truck is coming in at almost $700,000. We're asking for $745,000 so we can outfit it, because as well as the truck being 26, so is the majority of the equipment that's on it is also 26 years old. So we'd be looking to replace that as well. Bill, I like how Kim has us doing the plan now, and built into that is for fiscal year 25 for the replacement of engine 3. And at that time, engine 3 will be, when we go to town meeting, 20 years old, I apologize, 20 years old. And the significant difference between the one we're replacing 25 and now is when engine 2, the one we're getting rid of next, we get rid of that. The wear and tear on that truck is not as great as engine 3 is currently, and certainly will be going forward. It's not a secret that we've become a pretty busy department. And I'll give you for instance, I think engine 2 only has about 70,000 miles on it, and it's 25 years old. Engine 3 right now is 15 years old, and it already is pushing 100,000 miles, and it sees a lot of work. And it's if you walked around the truck and you looked at it, you would see that. The next project is my every year capital stabilization request. And you can see across on the other how we've built in fire trucks were going up at about 3 to 5% a year. And when the previous town manager and I had worked together to come up with this plan, we figured in a 3% increase. And I think that that's actually, this plan is working. And if you're new or if you would like me to repeat it, the reason why we came up with this is our most expensive equipment is our suppression equipment, which includes 3 engines, the heavy rescue, and a ladder. Rather than having to, kind of goes along with what you were talking about at the beginning, we pretty much, because these trucks are so equipment and they're so expensive, we pretty much pushed everybody else aside on the year that we need to replace them. So this kind of set up a savings account for us. And I'm looking at the numbers that are here. So when we get to fiscal year 25 and we replace engine 3, I'm projecting the 800,000. I'm sure we can do it less, but we'll have like a 750,000 in that account, in that stabilization account. So I think that will not present such a terrible impact to everybody else that could be looking for equipment that year. Really where I think you're going to, this was the whole basis for doing this, is really where you're going to reap the benefit. So when we get the next 2 trucks replaced, you shouldn't hear from us for quite a while. Where you're really going to reap the benefit of that stabilization account, if you continue that, is when I'm not here anymore. When the next cluster of that expensive equipment comes around, you should have plenty of money there to replace all those. So whoever your next chief is shouldn't have that difficult of a time. There should be plenty of money to replace the most expensive stuff I just told you about. I think that's where you'll see the real benefit. The next was the replacement of an SUV in fiscal year 23. That is to replace a 2012 Ford Expedition, which frankly, I could stand to replace today. The vehicle has been out of service for a month today already. We've been troubleshooting electrical issues with it. And I mean, we'll get it fixed and we're going to get it by, but this vehicle is in equally bad shape as the one we just replaced at the town meeting last Saturday. If not worse, to be honest. It's really not suitable for public safety the way it is right now. And we're pretty much reduced to just transporting people back and forth if we have a major incident with it, or for fire prevention duties, but it's not in great shape. We also have one spec'd in for fiscal year 2026, and that is to replace the fire prevention vehicle that will be 11 or 12 years old at that point in time. The next one is new to us, and you haven't seen this one before. This is for, and if you want to, you can, there was an attachment that Kim gave you for the spreadsheet for various projects over the upcoming fiscal years. In my 31 years in public safety, historically, what I have seen is municipal buildings that get built, pretty much they are run into the ground and only fixed or repaired when something breaks, and very little preventative maintenance stuff is done. We have put together a spreadsheet, and I'm sure there's gonna be some questions on this, and we put together a best estimate on the repairs for certain things that we would like to see done. We were asking for $97,000 in fiscal year 23 to get some of those things accomplished, particularly the crack repair in our floors before those deteriorate to the point where the whole floor has to come out. Frankly, they were cracked on the day we moved in, and they've progressively gotten worse. And another thing would be the parking lot is also a priority. If you know about parking lots or driveways, when those are installed, you're not supposed to top coat them initially and let them set up. Well, it's been 6 years this month since we've been here. We've never done that, and we're actually seeing the material that was below the pavement start to come through in a couple spots, and that really does need to get redone sooner than later. Fiscal year 24 is an ambulance that we are on a 3-year replacement for trucks. So that would be replacing a 2013, be 11 years old, 12 years old by the time it physically comes in to service. And that would be to replace our reserve ambulance. And then we would push our next oldest one into a reserve status and put the 3 frontline trucks, put the new one up front, and then chronologically we spread them backwards. We used to have primary truck was the newest. We would use that all the time, and so on and so forth. But we're to the point now where we don't really just have one frontline truck anymore. We have the 2 trucks are staffed during the daytime, and they pretty much go all day long. So there really isn't one specific frontline truck anymore. And we only see that call volume escalating as we near that date, as has been every year. Next one is a forestry truck, fiscal year 24. If you remember back in 2015, myself and Captain Rand came before the town to purchase this truck we have now, which is a 1999 Ford F550. We bought that for $18,000 with all the equipment used from the town of Northborough because it was at the end of their life. Well, we've managed to get it to this point, and we'd be looking to replace that. And that request was for $110,000. The next one is a broader communications article, and that is pretty widespread across the community. And this one isn't specific to only the fire department. This would be specific to the fire department, the police department, the school department, the public works, the board of health, and just if I'm missing anybody, or just about anybody else that's on the communication system that we have built in town. So if I put a presentation on this about this before, but scattered throughout the community at our highest elevations, we have radio towers, and in those towers we have repeaters and voters, and those are the components that make our radio system work. We replaced those last under a grant in 2002. They are beyond the end of their life, but they actually work okay right now. We have plans for a failure of them, and we have some parts stockpiled. Even though we couldn't get them, we saw what was coming, and because they were still working okay, we didn't want to just jump in and replace them. So we have some components to keep it going for now. But at that time, we'd love to invest in keeping the public safety and non-public safety radio system in service with the best equipment that we can. That also includes some work within the communication center. The radios that are in that division, the majority of them are also from the same grant in 2002. And I'm not sure about the consoles that are in there yet. They're only 6 years old. They'll probably be okay. We didn't actually figure in a full cost for replacement of those, but they'll probably be okay. I think that was it.
Thank you. Thank you for all that information. Does anyone have any questions for the chief? any of the items?
Ian
Ian?
does.
But Ian's on mute.
I was waiting to be called on before I took it off mute.
Okay,
Sorry.
fair enough.
Pat, I think the stabilization fund, as you said, has worked well. Just a quick question on that, if you know, for the pumper that you're being replaced, how much right now would in stabilization would be a portion of that be covered by stabilization funds today?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I think I'm gonna need some help, Kim. I don't remember.
I don't need the exact amount. I thought that was the case, but there
I think
is
we have
so-
575 in there, I believe.
When we talked the other day, you said 5 something. I don't have the exact.
I think it's close to 575,000, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Is the plan to exhaust it every time you use it, or is it bearing interest anywhere, or would the whole 575 or whatever go to the next purchase and then you rebuild for the purchase after that? How exactly is it used?
So this time, that's why I'm saying you won't see the full potential until the next cluster purchase of the equipment. Right now, it'll be exhausted.
Okay.
I think, I'm not the accountant, or the treasurer. I believe it'll be exhausted, and then we'll be back to it. But after engine 3 is replaced in 2005, you're not going to see us for a pumper, ladder, or a rescue until give me a second, 2032 or something like that. Somewhere around there. It's probably 2031, 32, 33, and at that point, there should be enough that. Because then it'll kick back up again. Engine 4 will have to get replaced. Then the rescue will have to get replaced. And then engine, which one? 4 rescue.
Truck.
Probably the ladder again at some point. So all that money will be in that account.
It's only 12 or 13 years. You'll still be around as chief. Come on.
No way. And more.
Hey, Chief, can I ask you, how many firefighters are there?
45. Well, 48 with the call department, but 45 career.
Okay.
Just curious how the grant landscape is looking these days. You guys do such an amazing job making money appear out of thin air that is just incredible. And just curious if if things are still out there looking ahead, or if the world crashing down has had an impact there as well, like it has everywhere.
The world has not had an impact. I think it's probably made a lot more money available, frankly, and that's if we have hit just for PPE alone, we did one regional one with Shrewsbury and Northborough, and we got $50,000 to split. We did one of our own for PPE for coverage of overtime for supervisors and for sanitization of our facility, the cleaning service for our facility. And that was almost that was $49,900 and something dollars. So we've been hitting them pretty well. We probably hit $500,000 since the last time I've met with you guys. On the horizon is the Assistance to Firefighters grant through FEMA, and we're in discussions about that now. It's a very competitive grant, and I really want to take a shot at knocking off one of these fire trucks, but those are the hardest ones to get, and so I'm kind of torn between wasting an opportunity when I can knock off a couple $100,000 thing, which is we're really good at. Frankly, Stephanie and I are really good at getting the $200,000-$300,000 ones, but the $700,000 one it's a risk. It would be great if we got it. Or do we take I don't want to call it a short thing. Nothing's a short thing, but a much higher probability going after 300,000 or 200,000 or so we're talking about that right now. And I know everybody's going to be quick and say, no, go for the 700, but then there's a equal chance we end up with 0. So not sure, but we keep writing as many as we can. There's some state 911 grants coming up. I'm confident 99% confident we'll end up with about $88,000 there as well. Now, maybe more, maybe in the 90s. We'll just keep plugging. We'll plug away at them. I
I
mean,
think keep doing what you're doing. That'd be one. Don't say go for the big one. Let everyone else fight over that and keep getting these singles and doubles. That helps. And that adds up
I kind of
over
want to
time.
take a shot at it. I kind of want to take a shot at it, but I'm nervous. I just think 300 is better than 0 because the truck ones are brutal. But we're also in a position where if it comes out tomorrow, I don't know. We're gonna have to. We'll talk about it. I mean, I'm on the fence.
Yeah, I mean, it's a calculated risk, but I know that we've heard in the past that you help other people write their grants. So you know who you'd be competing against and you wouldn't have to help them that time.
I'll just do a crappy job on this.
I just had one question about the write-up sorry, just scrolling up here. The write-up for the turnout gear.
Yep.
Just since you heard some of our prior discussion about the priority of things that literally have legal requirements. And just wanted to clarify, you say that you're asking for a second set of turnout gear for the firefighters in compliance with NFPA standard 1971.
Mm-hmm.
Does the standard say that everyone should have a second set, or is the gear in compliance with the standard?
Well, both. So on
Okay.
the NFPA 1500, our gear is in compliance. But
Okay.
on the NFPA 1971, we're supposed to have 2 sets of gear. We are.
Okay.
And I'll say this. So like my second set of gear, I don't really include mine because it's expired. So and that's a liability, frankly. So if somebody has a gear on that and they get hurt in a fire and it's expired, we're liable for that. I wear mine only if my primary set's out of gear because I'm not doing the calls that they're doing. My biggest risk today is a paper cut, but theirs is, they're doing it every day.
Okay. So I wasn't sure if I was reading the sentence, incorrectly, placing the commas, but I guess that tells us where the priority lies for that, because that is a compliance and liability issue.
Cancer is a very, very big deal in the fire service. I can tell you within our own organization, since I've been here, we've probably seen, I think 6 or 7 people, and 4 of them very serious. 1 died right after he retired, like within 6 months. That's really the crux behind the second set. You got to get people out of their gear. We don't even transport contaminated gear. We used to be cool. Used to be like a badge of honor to have dirty gear, dirty helmet. Now and then throw it in the fire truck, go back and hang it in your rack, and it smelled great because we're firefighters and we like that smell. Well, now we found out in the last 10 years that smell is actually off-gassing. That's why we have a negative pressure room that we store our turnout gear in. We don't actually put the contaminated gear back in the fire truck anymore. We call a pickup truck to the scene. They pick up all our contaminated hose and contaminated gear. And when it comes back, it goes with personal protective gloves right into the washing machine, if you want to call it that. So we take that pretty seriously. So, but to answer about NFPA standards are technically not law, but in court, that is the standard to which we're held to, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Thank you for fleshing that out for us.
Well,
So Lisa, I just had one other question, comment and question. I think the plan for the facility, I think it's great, and I think we should be doing it for all our facilities, because I think you hit the nail on the head, Chief, with the fact that municipalities, and we're no different, have built new buildings and then said, oh, it's brand new, so we don't need to put any money into it. And you think about this as like your house. If you don't put money into it, it's going to get more expensive and things are going to rot and all that type of stuff. So I applaud you for the plan. And I think it actually came up in our meeting last time. I think Andrew brought it up about, thinking about this from, facilities and maintenance across all of our buildings. I guess the question I have here, though, when I looked at your plan, there was a number of things out there for, I think, 3 different fiscal years. What you're proposing here is just one amount that I think covers what the plan was for fiscal year 21. So I guess the question is, what's the plan for some of those other things? Is it out further than 5 years, or how are you thinking about those other things that are on that
Hold on a
list?
second. Give me 1 second. I just got to get back to that one. So, so what are you asking me? How much do I think the other things are going to cost?
Well, when I looked at the plan, like the stuff that I think you're covering is really the stuff that in the plan showed fiscal year 21. You're asking for it in 23, I believe.
Yeah, I made a mistake. I didn't put the projections for the 20, well, 23 was 90.
And I think that's really covering the stuff. The way I read it, it's the stuff that's the floor repair,
Yeah, I'm
seal
sorry.
coating, roof. So just
So our plan was to consolidate the priorities and kind of get them all into one fiscal year.
okay.
All right.
Pat, does any of the other stuff fit within your operating budget?
So I was just looking at one, and I just said to myself, I could probably do that out of my budget. I think the roof inspection, I could probably just cover that, frankly. Now that I'm looking at that one, I think that's only $1,000. But we have had problems with it, so we probably should do a roof inspection. We've had Hartford Roofing back here, I don't know, half a dozen times fixing leaks, which is problematic because when the roof leaks, we damage the inside of the building, the tiles, and there's probably a couple miles worth of fiber optic stuff and cat wires and stuff up there that's outside of my ability really to even talk about. But I could take that one probably out of my budget.
Okay, just so I'm clear, so that 97,000 though really covers pretty much everything that's on that capital plan. It says 3 years. You're looking to bundle it, delay it a little bit from the fiscal year 21 to 22, whatever. But
yeah, so if you look in the project, the project's project justification portion, we're estimating, because I have not gone out and done full work yet, but the crack repair and painting of the floor, the flooring replacement inside the station, exterior painting, appliance replacement, interior painting, and parking lot maintenance. Those were the 97,000.
okay,
So
perfect.
those were our priorities for now. But we're also
Great, thank you.
we're also trying to be like team players, and even though it's calling for that now, we're also asking for a lot in 21. It's kind of why we pushed it out to 23 a little bit. And also it does need to get repainted. We had some painting done in here through the senior workers, but that was just a portion of the inside. And then no disrespect, but it wasn't like a professional painting job for a public safety building.
Understood.
Okay, any other questions from anyone? All right. Thank you so much for the information, Chief.
No problem. Thank you all. Have a great night.
Stay safe.
You too.
Okay. So we have no minutes, but they're coming. We'll look at them next time if we get them. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, any last roundtable discussion, questions, concerns, comments from anyone?
Just to be clear, our next meetings are at 5:30. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I've posted the agenda for Monday evening's meeting. DPW will present their projects. Buildings and Grounds has a project. And we also have the following Monday, the police department, IT, and the library director will be here to provide an update on their building and renovation project.
All right. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Everyone wants to stay.
Would anyone like to second that
Looking
motion?
second.
Thank you. All right, let me take a vote. Bob,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Ian,
Yes.
Leah.
Yes.
I am in favor as well. Did I miss anybody? Everyone else here is a non-voting member of this party, correct? All right. All right, then it is unanimous and this meeting is adjourned. We will see you all on Monday.
Bye, guys.
you.
Take care.
Good night.
I am.